All right, welcome to the Student Athlete Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Lemke, and today we have a truly special guest. I met this man just a week and a half ago and quickly realized his exceptional drive and passion. Not only is he a D1 runner, but he's also on a mission to help other athletes achieve their dreams as well. At just 18 years old, he is incredibly hungry for knowledge and eager to learn from others to make a greater impact. Please welcome Brady Sins to the podcast. Brady, it's great to have you.
Hi, thank you for having me, Nick. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, let's get into your story a little bit, just of your path to become a D1 athlete, and then we'll dig into some of those key things that I know we've talked about that I'm confident will help the audience get more opportunities at that next level.
All
Does that
right,
seem good?
that sounds good. Yeah, that sounds good.
Awesome. So let's first start with that path to becoming a D1 athlete. Can you talk to us about how you got there and what were some key moments that led you to become a D1 athlete?
So, I'm going back here to 7th grade where I just didn't want to do any sports. My parents made me do a sport because I was like, they wanted me to be active. So I was like, okay, I'll run because I wasn't good at soccer, baseball, or anything like that. So I just started running and I just enjoyed it. I really never complained, even though it was really hard. It was really hard at first. I was on the floor after the first practice for like 20 minutes. I only ran like 2 miles. And yeah, it was just I just never complained. I just kept doing it. I learned, and then after the first and second seasons of me running, I took off completely, didn't run, which is a big mistake. I've learned from that. And since 9th grade, I was like, okay, I kind of want to run for college because I was like, I just thought about the next level. I'm like, that'd be really cool if I could do that. So I just started training just about, every week, a couple times a week. And I had a good coach from 8th grade to 10th grade year that was encouraging me in person. And then eventually I got a coach virtually, but he was still, he's still in the area occasionally. So he was, there to support me. He really took my training to the next level, and it's just really helped me. All this has really helped me get to this point where I'm now able to run for Division I college. Now, it's not the only factor. It comes with like reaching out to coaches and such.
Yeah. So you talked about when you hit 9th grade, there was kind of a pivotal moment there where you're like, okay, like I want to run in college. But what I find is a lot of athletes, they have that like desire to compete in college, to play at that D1 level, but there's a gap between what they want and what they actually do. So
Right.
what was it for you that got you to start running consistently and putting in that work consistently?
It was just that dream of like, I want to run at the next level, and it was just something I just over time it just marinated, and like the more I thought about it, I'm like, I want to do this. This sounds fun.
Okay.
So I got to the point of just running every day consistently, and got to the point and got fast enough to be able to run for a team, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a big accomplishment. I mean, we look at the statistics, for D1 specifically, it's like what, maybe 1% of athletes.
Yeah,
Is that a little bit higher for runners, like 2 or 3% maybe?
maybe 2 at most.
Yeah, so it's a very small percentage of high school athletes that actually get to that level, and I mean, it requires a lot of discipline and it requires a lot of action taking, and so I think that's so huge. What do you feel like were the things that helped you stay consistent through your training? Even when there were highs and lows, like what kept you motivated to keep going?
I think the motivation part of it, whenever you run a lot, whenever you just run every single day you run, you build that discipline, but motivation comes sparingly. You can build discipline, but motivation is kind of sparse. You have to find it some places. You have to find it through people you're around. I'd say surround yourself with people that think like-minded, that can encourage you, that can motivate you. Just even when times get tough, look to God, look for His path, look to just look for Him, and he'll guide you in His ways, and everything happens for a reason if you're following him, and no matter what, you're gonna come out on the other side a better person than you were before.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of pieces there that we'll get into as we go along, but I do want to ask about the you talked about doing it daily. So, this is something that I find whether in business or whether in sports, like, you know, that the thing that can be a challenge is when you're not doing it daily, like you're doing it 3 days a week or you're doing it 5 days a week, but doing something every day. It doesn't mean you're like going hardcore every day, but what does that look like for you? Like, how do you balance between, training and like, that burnout aspect and like actual like rest and recovery, and how do you like, find that balance so that you're consistent with it?
Well, in terms of training, I would take my hard days hard, but I'd take my easy days easy. I wouldn't just push my easy days because if I did that, I would get hurt or something. And my coach from 10th grade to 12th grade year was really good about keeping me from not overexerting myself and keeping me in a situation where I felt all right, you know.
No, I like that. I really like that quote you said. You said, keep the hard days hard and the easy days easy. Because a lot of us were like, oh, we have this whole list of things. And then something like throws us off first thing in the morning. And we're like, I don't know if we want to, do that hard day. But the fact that you kept at it is definitely big.
Right. There'd be times where I look at a workout and I'm like, I don't want to do this, but I kind of have to.
Yeah. I mean, if
So,
you have to, if you actually want to succeed long term, it's
right.
that short term pain for the long term gain.
It's about laying down bricks on the foundation, and then eventually it becomes a house.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. You got a lot of good phrases and quotes that you got in there.
Thank you.
Uh, let's talk about the training itself a little bit more too. Is like, you're from Southern Louisiana, which
Yeah.
as I know from Florida, it doesn't sound super pleasant to run in with that heat and humidity.
Right.
How do you like mentally and physically push through this? And then do you have any like specific training tips for that heat and humidity?
Well, I just say just persevere through it. You have to expect it. Because when you walk outside in the morning and it's 95% humidity and 80 degrees, you have to just accept it at that point and say, this is what I'm dealing with. I'm just going to do the best in my circumstances and just persevere through it. That's about it. And yeah, it's tough. Summer's really tough down here. Really tough. I don't know. I've been training anywhere else, but I feel like we have it a little worse than others. And but generally, if you can get through the summer, the rest of the year is so easy to get through because it's just way better weather than it is now, especially now.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
training tips, I'd say if you're outside in the hot summer, hydrate and fuel. Hydrate and fuel. I'm sure you preach the same. It's definitely a key factor because you don't want to be dehydrated if you're running 5 miles out from your house and you just have to come back with just no energy or fuel. It's not fun. I've done it before and I've
yeah,
learned.
yeah. So when you say hydrate, what does that mean for you? Is that just water, or is there any specific things that you do that helps you with that humidity?
Well, generally, yeah, before runs, I usually just drink water, and then post run, I get some sort of electrolyte drinks in me because I'm like, if I don't, usually my calves start to cramp if I let it go on for too long because of lack of, I think, sodium, right?
Yeah.
Hmm. So yeah, that's the main thing with rehydrating and then refueling. I'm sure you could talk about this more, but
Yeah.
I need it. I need something after, or like in between workouts, so I don't like completely crash.
Yeah. No, I mean that's big, especially with that again, that heat and humidity, it wears you out a lot faster. Like I know when I was in, when we were in Florida together, it was just like I'm just walking from hotel to hotel and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is not fun. And I can't imagine running, 3, 5, 10 miles in that. That's just it's a whole different, mindset.
It is. Another tip for the summer is either you have to wake up really early to run, like not like 6, or really late, like 7 or 8 p.m. around here at least. It's just those are the best times to run. Generally, the morning's better than the evening because it's not as hot. but it's more humid. So you have the trade off. Do you want more humidity or do you want more heat? Personally,
Yeah.
I just take more humidity over the heat because I'd rather not run in the sun.
Yeah. That is fair. Yeah. That direct sun can add up real quick.
Oh, for sure.
Now what about what are some other challenges? Like I know you had that really good mentor early on it sounds like has really helped you through that high school path. But were there other challenges that you've had to overcome along this journey of becoming a D1 athlete?
Yeah, like environment wise at school, I my in-person coach, not necessarily my coach, but the person that ran the program at my school, I don't think really liked me and singled me out. Like in terms of like, I've gotten yelled off a track before for trying to finish my workout. That's just an example.
Hmm.
But a way to get through that I found was just to not, not think too much into it, just to, you know, it's hard to get through that stuff, but you just have to persevere and just say it's gonna be over one day, and I'm appreciate it whenever I'm out of it. So I'm really happy to be going to my new school,
Mhm.
and it's gonna be I'm gonna have a way better coach to get motivation from, and she knows what she's talking about, and I'm excited about that.
Good.
Mm.
So I've got to ask though, with how the culture of sports is nowadays, especially in sports like baseball and football, like I mean, we look at the transfer portal in college. It's so easy to go, from college to college and just start hopping things when something's not going your way. And I've
Right.
heard that even in some like states, like I don't know if it's Louisiana, I know it's somewhere in the Midwest where there's like a transfer portal even for like youth athletes. So it's kind of taught this culture of like not being able to really stick things out and really get through that. So what are some tips you have to have that resilience even when whether it be coaches or whether it be teammates, or like what is it that helps you stick it out and really like grow from it?
Well, just talk to them. If you have a problem, just talk to them about it because most of the time, sometimes people just don't know that they're giving you issues. So if you just talk to them, it may resolve. If it doesn't, then it's just best to kind of avoid the person because they're just not someone that you should be around if they're constantly bringing you down. And but if the environment does get too bad, switching switching to a different environment may help because it may reduce stress. It may help you be able to focus on your school, your work, your sports, everything else. Not encouraging the switch, but if it gets to a point, it is probably a better decision to do that other than staying.
Okay.
Mm.
What do you feel, and I know everyone's like threshold is going to be different, but what would you feel like is like a general threshold, like because I feel like our threshold right now is like really low, so like what would be like what would be some key things I guess for you that would have made you want to go to another school?
If I would have like gotten kicked off of a team for something I really didn't do, I think that was definitely a thing that I was thinking about, but it never happened. So that was that's probably a threshold for
Yeah.
sure. I can deal with a lot. I can deal with a lot of adversity. It's just that's just you know if I get kicked off of my sport, then I'm like, okay, I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's fair. I mean, like, you're like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, and if I'm like just trying to work hard and do my thing, and especially in a more individual sport, like yes, there's
Mm,
sort of a team, but you're especially in more of an individual sport, so it's hard when you're like, you're just working hard to be the best that you can be, and
mhm,
you get that resistance against that.
mhm, for sure.
So were there any other challenges you wanted to hit on before we talk more about recruiting?
I'd say just getting through injury. I've dealt with here and there injury, and like not big ones. I've never had any like broken bones. Hopefully, won't. I mean, I've had ligament aggravations and all that kind of stuff. It's just to kind of take it easy whenever that happens, and to just be very conservative of what you do because you don't want to injure it further. And definitely, when you come off of an injury, definitely strength train to fix and strengthen the area that may be lacking.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a big deal. I feel like I see so many athletes. who just power through injury and they don't actually correct what's wrong, like whether it be a weak hamstring or weak back versus chest, like things like that, and then it like will mess them up even more. Especially with those knees, like I feel like we're getting more and more knee issues, shoulder issues in baseball, all the things.
And I say that like everything in the lower body is connected. If your knee hurts, it may be your hip. If your, if your knee hurts, it could be your shin, it could be your calf. It's just a lot of different things that happen in the legs are very intricate, especially when it comes to running. Is that one thing could be causing another thing, and that's what I found is that if you try to go through the process of elimination of like trying to eliminate every single little issue, then usually it helps resolve it.
Yeah,
whatever is wrong.
And that's where I stress the physical therapy side. I know we're going to have, like, I'm going to be bringing on some physical therapists here on the podcast as well. And I know, it's understanding, like having those people who truly understand, like you have a pretty good knowledge just being a runner, like you understand how those things are connected, but then like what can each individual do to, strengthen those things so that they, correct their ACL or things like that.
For sure.
Yeah, awesome. So the recruiting process. I know this is a big one for you. This is something that's important to you, and so let's definitely dig into this one. And I know this is for the audience. Like this is definitely a overwhelming piece as well. Especially, I feel like in certain areas or in certain sports, it may be a little bit more difficult to get those opportunities. So, you getting recruited to D1 University, as we've mentioned, is a big accomplishment. So what steps did you take to make yourself stand out to recruiters?
Just showing them, first thing is just being persistent. Like whenever you want a coach to notice you, you have to, you want to do everything in your power to get them to notice you. Even if it's just they say no, it's better than not having an answer. Getting a no that you can't come here is better than nothing. So the best thing to do is just keep reaching out to people. Like not whenever I'd email a coach, I wouldn't just email the coach. I'd email all of his assistant coaches, even like the sports nutritionist, because you never know who's gonna bring that email to the coach, or if they're gonna talk about it and be like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of this dude. He emailed me," that kind of stuff. That's just one thing that's just kind of one tip that I give about reaching out.
Okay. So, oh shoot, you mentioned something. So that persistence, like how do you, I guess, where do you draw the line? Like where you, well, actually, no, take one step back. When somebody says no, when a coach says no, how do you overcome the no's?
You just move on. You just start reaching out to other people, because you can't just. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I want to go to this big old school," but sometimes it's like realistically, they might not want you. And then what if they don't accept you? Well, then where are you going now? Where if you want to run or play sports, play baseball at that one college, what if they're like, "We don't want you"? Then what's going to happen now? You have to reach out to other coaches that you might not be first willing to go to, right?
Yeah. Don't go where you're not wanted, essentially.
Right. But also some more things to show coaches to stand out. It's just to be like, to show your attitude, like to show your personality, because most coaches, they're not looking just at the numbers on the paper. They're looking at the person that they're recruiting, because they want to keep the team culture how it is. They don't want to influence toxicity if there is going to be anything introduced. But you need to show your best version of yourself to the coach. It's not putting on a face, but just showing them that you're good. You show good value. You show good work ethic. You show good personality, etc. That kind of stuff.
Yeah. I have to ask, just for the audience's perspective on this, how many no's would you say you got before you got your yes?
I haven't really counted them, but I did get a few no's. At the same time, I was getting yeses or like maybes. I was getting more maybes and yeses than I was no's per se, but it was just because I was focusing on the colleges I know that I could probably get into, because they're local, and you can build relationships with coaches because I started reaching out to coaches, I think, January of my junior year. So by the time I was hitting my senior year of like indoor track, I've already been talking to these coaches for a year, and they're like, and they'll tell you straight up if they're like, yeah, we have a spot for you, or no, we don't have a spot for you on the team. Because sometimes they might want you, but they might not have the funds to get you, or the room on the roster to get you on the team.
That's
Or it
fair.
might just be a really competitive recruiting year like I had, where any other year I would have been able to get on a certain team, but this year in particular, it was very competitive to get on.
Yeah, I get that. What about so you mentioned something about when you're what you were applying for places that you knew you were going to like more likely get into, like you weren't going to like the super big D1 schools, but you still got into it. So like what was it? How do you tell like, you know, where you're at? Like did you like ask your mentors this, or how did you kind of know like what level to kind of focus on?
Like in terms of like Division 1, like
Yeah, versus like 2, 3, you know, all those things.
well, in Louisiana, we don't really have Division 2 schools. We have a lot of Division 1s and like some Division 3s. So I kind of knew where I would fit in necessarily. Like the big SEC schools, like LSU, the biggest one in our state,
Mhm.
they have very very high standards for their sports teams. So I was like, it's a possibility, but it's also like in the back of my head, I'm like, I don't know if I can get on this team, because you have to really, yeah, you're trying to get recruited, but you have to just be real with yourself. Okay, let's look at the times that they usually recruit. Am I in that range to get recruited? And not just running, just any sort of stats. Like, you know, it can apply to every sport. I'm just using running as an example. Like if you don't hit this time, if you're not hitting these times, then you probably won't get on the team unless you had some sort of special deal with the coach or something. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair.
Mm.
So what are some, just from like your experience and the things that you've been learning, what are some like universal tips that either runners or just like athletes in general could start doing to get recruited?
Uh, Start reaching out now. It's never too early to start reaching out. Just and make and just yeah, just start building relationships now, even though they can't give you offers just quite yet. Or if you're at that point where they can't give you offers, it's great to just talk to coaches, ask them what they want. The best thing about calls is basically your evaluation. It's their evaluation of you, but also your evaluation of them. Of You ask the questions that you want to hear, and they'll answer them. And then if you like what they're saying, you're like, okay, I can think about going to this further. And then eventually you could be like, hey, can I go on a visit? Or if you don't like the school, you could be like, hey, I don't really think this is a good fit. I might have to stop further contact with the school.
Okay. Okay. What about specifically for like smaller towns or smaller regions that may not be like, because I mean, there's some regions like I know like where a lot of my athletes are, like they get noticed pretty easily because of the
Mm.
schools they play for. But what are some strategies around those who maybe aren't going to get as much of that visibility?
Well, there's some schools in our state that are really big. They're like, oh, if you went here, you could probably go somewhere if you have, because the coaches at their schools probably have good relationships with other ones. But
Mhm.
smaller schools like I went to, it's not that it's hard to get recognized. You just have to put your name out, because anyone from a small town can make it to a big university. It's just about being good, being persistent, and yeah, it's not about the size of the city. It's just about how persistent you're really going to be if you want to go to that next level.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah. That persistence, you know, it comes up, that resilience, it keeps coming up of like, you have to have thick skin.
Mm-hmm. You can't just
um,
like get down for every little inconvenience. You have to just stay strong.
yeah.
Mm.
So then how do you personally like handle that pressure? Like what are
Mm.
some things, whether it be, you know, you shared your faith, like any specific strategies or anything that has helped you handle that pressure and handle that like uncertainty as an athlete?
Yeah, like the main thing is just trusting that God has a plan for all of this. I mean, that's the main thing. It just takes off a lot of stress, and like, okay, I'm just perform how I perform, and whatever I do is what I do. And with the thing about like the highs and lows of the season or whatever you're going through is that if you didn't have lows, you wouldn't have highs. So it's good that you have lows, so you can compare your lows to your highs and be like, look how far I've came from that deficit. Look how far I came from, you know, from the bottom to the top. I mean, I went from last place in races by 2 minutes. I ran, I think, a 34-minute 3-mile, and then to now, I mean, I've gotten multiple state podiums. I ran 15:22 in the 3-mile, which if you're runners out there, I'm sure you know those metrics.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think I see in your, for those watching the video, I think I can see in your background you have quite a few awards back there.
Yeah, I have a that's just if you want proof of what I've done, it's in the corner right there. But
Yeah. um I've only really known you for a little over a week now, but again, it's very clear, like, you're very much a student, like even just our conversation last week, like, very much a student, very much of an action taker you are. I mean,
yeah,
you had like this hype from that weekend that we were together at this conference, and then within that weekend you had launched your Instagram and you're already posting, and you're already, like, your audience is like growing really fast. So
right.
like, what has helped you to have that kind of discipline and just that desire to just take action?
Well, the discipline aspect, honestly, it stems from running. If you believe it or not, it's just because whenever you run, you have to do a lot of what you don't like, and then it becomes something that you eventually do like. Same with, like, I started my Instagram. I think I already have a video that's almost at 10,000 views. I'm like, which is crazy. I'm like, I'm really glad I went to that conference last weekend and got inspired to do that stuff, because my discipline does translate when I have purpose behind what I'm trying to do.
So on that note from that weekend and just in general, what's your advice on, like, you mentioned earlier about being around other people similar goals, like, hearing from people who have, like, gone that path, like,
Mm-hmm.
what has like your experience with that been, and what's your, like, advice for the audience
Like, like, what do you exactly?
with, like, community and then also, like, mentors, like those types of things?
Yeah, just surround yourself with people that you really want to. If you want to be successful, you have to surround yourself with people that are successful. If you want to be faster, you have to surround yourself with people that are faster than you, so you can really thrive off of what they're doing. Even if they're not in person, literally just texting them and just going back and forth, and them encouraging you, encouraging them, is great. Because at the school I was at, I was the fastest by like a lot. So I had really no one to run with ever, and I just made friends with people from a bunch of different schools, and we just all kind of just encourage each other and tell each other good job for races, because it's kind of the phrase is kind of lonely at the top. It kind of is true
Yeah.
because I'm in a smaller area. There's areas that are like way bigger than ours, and I'd be like kind of lower in the mix, but where I'm at is it kind of feels like you're at the top and you have no one to really talk to, so it's great to surround yourself with people that also feel
Yeah.
the same way. So.
Yeah, I want to make sure the audience heard that right. So Brady didn't just compete against the people in his school. I hear a lot of small schools and they'll be like, yeah, like, top of the school, no big deal. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm gonna make a D1 just because I'm the top of my school. But it's like, no. Like,
No.
you got connected with kids from other schools, other athletes that you could compete with in a way where you guys were challenging each other, encouraging each other. Like, it goes well beyond just your tiny school, because your tiny school is one of thousands in the US. And
Right,
so I really want make sure everybody heard that, hey, you went outside of your school to find competition, essentially.
right, for sure. And like, just more advice I'd give to people would just be to, just trust in, like I've said maybe 3 times, just to trust in God's will. I mean, that's about it. If you realize that nothing's in your control, then a lot of pressure is taking off. And also, if I can do it, if I can make it to the Division 1 school, y'all can, because I went from, like I said, I went from the bottom to literally winning, not winning state, but podium, like getting on the podium at state, placing well in regionals. It just it just comes with consistency. When I always preach is that consistency is the key to everything. Anything you apply it to, you will get better. No matter if it's like a little bit at a time, you're going to get better at that one thing. You want to get better at speaking, you keep on speaking and you get better at it. You want to get better at running, you keep running, you get better at it. It just applies to a lot of things, and that's just applied it to my life heavily.
Yeah. So I like that. Like that consistency is so important. So what about, like, is that your strategy to overcome any fears you have? Or like when you have those fears come in, like, because I mean fears hit all of us, like, is that would that be your like one big thing, is like consistency? Or what are some other big things that really, helped you like achieve that dream and overcome the fear?
When the fears and doubts creep in, like I'm thinking about like at the start line, or like, oh, I don't know how I'm gonna do for this race. Usually I tell myself to be excited, because whenever you're nervous, it's the same hormone as being excited. You just have to tell yourself you have to be excited to run this race, or to, to hit this ball out of the arena or something like that. I'm not too big into other sports, but it can definitely apply. And it's definitely a good thing to apply. Just to not really just take as much pressure off yourself as possible, and just do what you can. God will provide whatever is necessary.
Yeah. It all starts up in here. It all starts up in the brain.
It does. It does.
Any last pieces of advice for the athletes listening, to really help them, reach their dreams at playing at the next level?
I feel like I've said everything, but it's just like, just believe in yourself. I mean, your number one fan is yourself. So if you believe in yourself, you don't need anyone else to believe in you. And just achieve your dreams. Go shoot for high goals. Do everything in your power to achieve your dreams. And if you want to go to that next level of Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, they're all good. College level is all competitive. So if you can make it to any one of those schools, some school will want you, and you will be able to go, if that be JUCO, NCAA, or any of that. You will be able to go to that next level if you really work at it and you really stay consistent and persevere and resilient in everything you do. If that be school, sports, work, attitude, personality, all of the above.
Yeah, mic drop. Yes. Literally, like, that right there, like, sums up all the things we've gone through. Like, it all starts with yourself. You have to believe in yourself and believe, who you are. And you don't have to have even your parents or your family, like, they don't have to necessarily believe in your dream. You have to believe it enough to take the actions required.
You can't count on other people to believe in your dream.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
Whew, that's it. That's a good one right there. I like that one. It's a good way to wrap that up.
Yeah.
So for Brady, where can listeners follow your journey and learn more about your experiences?
So I have Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. They're all really different names right now because it's not letting me change my name. But on Instagram, it's The Sins Runs, TheSinsRuns. And then on TikTok, it's Brady_runs10. So BRADY_RUNS10. And for Facebook, it's just Brady Sins. So, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. And then we'll drop that too in the show notes.
And if anyone wants a free email template of what to send to a college coach, if you're unsure about what to send, just DM me on Instagram and I can send you a free email to send out to coaches that really worked for me. So,
yeah. So if you guys don't know what to say, like, hey, he's got you, Brady's got you. So The Sins Runs on Instagram, and he'll shoot you over that email template. But yeah, so Brady, thank you so much again for joining us today, and sharing your journey and your insights. Again, your dedication, your passion, your drive is really inspiring. And to all our listeners, I hope you found this conversation as valuable as I did. Remember, if you want it badly enough, you will do whatever it takes to get it. And again, if you want to follow Brady's journey and learn more about his experiences, go shoot him a follow, especially on that Instagram. It's definitely looking pretty good there. Thanks again for tuning in to the Student Athlete Performance Podcast, and we will see you next time.